I have been trying to record this video podcast conversation with myself for the past couple of days. And so I finally said I'm going to sit down and get this out because it has been on my heart as an aha moment for a couple of days. And that simply is the message to share with all of you overachievers and high achievers who, like me, set these huge goals for yourself and have ideas for where you want to take yourself, your career, your brand, your business, your family, your relationships. And you make goals and you create vision boards and you make all of these plans and you give yourself these almost unrealistic time frames. And then when you fall short, you kind of beat yourself up about not reaching the goal or not reaching the goal in the time frame that you originally planned to. I want to share with you today to not stop. No. Yes. Don't stop making your lists. Don't stop making your to-do lists. Don't stop making your vision boards. Don't stop making plans. And verbalizing those plans and capturing those plans in writing and sharing those with friends and other supportive people who can help hold you accountable. And I want you to not stop making those lists because something that I realized just a couple of weeks ago through this boot camp workshop that I'm taking, actually a former student of mine who was a member of Package Your Genius Academy last fall, a year ago, has launched his business and has hosted a number of boot camps on mindfulness and productivity and work-life balance. And I enrolled in his first kind of mini boot camp that was about work-life balance. And during that boot camp, he asked us to write down some notes about our vision for our lives, both professionally and personally, and then, identify one priority that you can make present in the next quarter to help you kind of reach your goals and start using your time in a way that honors your vision for your life. Because so many of us have a vision, or at least this faraway vision of who we see ourselves becoming and who we see ourselves being. But when we look at our schedules and our calendars, our time doesn't really align with that vision that we have, right? So, you might say, I want to be a very hands-on parent. But then when you look at your calendar, the thing that's taking up the most of your time is work, right? Or your business responsibilities or travel that you're taking for business. And you're not necessarily being intentional about the time that you are putting on the calendar to be that more present parent. And so that was kind of what I wanted to address during his boot camp. I wanted to get back to a few things that I had left behind and that I missed, like creative writing, like connecting more with my husband intentionally, building more room for connection in my community and with friends, because I feel like sometimes my life can get very work focused. Long story short, I took the boot camp it was the beginning of September. So it was just a 3-week class. And then he offered an extended version of the boot camp that started several weeks after that. And so we're halfway through this new 6-week productivity course or work-life balance boot camp. And between the beginning of the fall when I signed up for the mini class and now, so much has happened, right? So I launched the 4th cohort of Package Your Genius Academy. And so I spent about a month putting all of my professional energy into that, into connecting with prospective students, marketing the class and doing press and trying to get the word out about this amazing opportunity. And that was well worth it. And ironically, when I looked back at my priorities that I set at the beginning of September, one of my priorities was to really focus and be intentional about the marketing I was doing for the Academy. So I did honor that priority. But a couple of the other priorities that were on my list, so Miko, who's the person who's guiding this work-life balance, Miko Whitlock, he said that at any given time, especially if you're looking at it on a per quarter basis, so a 3-month cycle, you should have no more than 2 personal priorities and no more than 2 professional priorities. So I was looking at the rest of the priorities that I had set. One was to publish my creative writing. So I have a number of essays that I am working on shaping and refining and getting those out to literary journals and mainstream publications. Another goal was my health. So, of course, to get into better shape, lose some weight, do some strength training, get stronger, and just in general tackle my well-being from a physical standpoint. Another one was to be more intentional about spending quality time with my husband, outside of the home and away from the kids. So we were supposed to go on some dates and plan an anniversary trip. And then I think the second so the first professional one was the Academy. The second was the writing. Personal was health and marriage. And by the time I reflected back on these priorities and where I was with them, I realized that I had not put any energy into anything except for the Academy marketing, because I had said that was what I wanted to do. And I had essentially been focusing only on that, and I had let the personal goals of both health and marriage fall to the wayside. I had done one thing with writing, but that was it. And so I started to kind of feel bad because here I am making the time to be what I'm thinking is very intentional about figuring out how I am going to be spending my time so that it is in more alignment with the vision that I have for my life versus just the money that I want to make or the lives I want to impact through my business. And when I looked at the goals and priorities that I had set for myself as a wife and a mom and a writer, creative being, I had completely done what I always do, which is kind of put work first. And for a second, I started feeling bad about myself. And I started to feel like I let myself down. And I started to feel like I was squandering this amazing opportunity to be a part of Miko's boot camp and to really make some progress in the direction of getting to the point where I want to be and really living my vision for myself. And I started flipping through a Moleskine journal. It's so funny. I was telling someone the other day, I have at any given time, 3 or 4 journals. So I have my journal for my thoughts, my personal, my revelations and things that I realize and discover, self-reflection. I have that journal and it's lined. I have a content journal. So when I have ideas for new podcasts or videos or classes or programs, I work them out in that notebook. It's also lined. But then I have a blank soft cover Moleskine, and it's not lined, and it just kind of leaves me with space to write and sketch and outline and vision different things. And I opened it up because I was looking for some inspiration, and I wanted to do some reflection on some of the visions that I've kind of outlined and sketched in the past. And I came across, this is like one of them. I came across a page where just a year ago, I think, I had written down some keywords that communicated how I wanted to feel and how I wanted the things that I wanted to see become more manifest in my life. And one was adventure, freedom, connection, depth. These are words that I thought of. Creativity. So health, wealth, and creativity were on the list. But creativity, I think, especially as it pertains to writing. But connection, all of these things that I said I wanted to begin to focus on. And even though, I wrote that in that book and I hadn't so much thought about the progress I had made on those things. But when I reflect now on the things I don't even think about because they are so ingrained in my day to day. So some of the personal investments that I made particularly in relationships, right? So in relationships outside of my home, because for me, I will often tell myself that I don't have time to go out, to do things, to hang out, because beyond my business, I have 2 young children who take up a lot of my time and energy and emotional energy. I invest a lot in them and we're very close. And my marriage. And it seems like beyond that, talking to family every now and then, but beyond that, there's not a ton of extra time. But I decided that I wanted to be more intentional about building connection with peers, with friends, with women. And I wrote that down in the book. And I don't know that I thought so much about it too much after that. But I made the list, right? Like I put it on my list to think through and to kind of hold that space for myself because, hey, this is a vision that I have. And when I tell you that I don't even recognize the level of connection that's present in my life right now versus 18 months ago, it could not be more different. And it's only growing and evolving with each passing day in a way that I don't think I could have foreseen at the time of me just writing that in my book. And I don't necessarily think that I put on my calendar to do it, in a super intentional way, the way that I'm learning to do in this class. But somehow planting that seed, writing it down, and kind of honoring the desires of my heart, but communicating, making a record of it, somehow planted a seed in my subconscious that I, allowed to sprout and bloom, even when I wasn't thinking about it and I wasn't feeling like I was making it a priority. Somehow, because I had written it there and thought about it enough to write it down, it came to life. So fast forward, as I'm looking over my priorities that I said I was going to make for the 4th quarter that I had not even made, or begun to make a dent in, I hadn't begun to focus on at all. And I'm starting to beat myself up about it. I was reminded of where I was a year and a half, 2 years ago, as it pertains to a few of my other visions and goals, and how even though the timeline, I don't know if I even met the timeline that I set for myself originally. I don't know if I had a specific timeline. I don't know if I said, oh, this year I'm going to work on this or this quarter, but somehow it happened because I put it on the agenda. That kind of gave me some excitement and some resolve, I guess, for the new vision and the new goals that I put down for, the 4th quarter. They may not happen. First of all, the 4th quarter is not even over. So you can see how hard I am on myself. It's like literally the first 3 weeks of the 1st quarter, I still have to, the quarter's not over, as my mother would say. It ain't over yet. But even if I don't reach this vision or this goal, or I don't hit all those marks in this quarter, I'm really encouraged because the fact that I have identified what I want, written it down, I know it's going to happen, because the same way I identified what I wanted and wrote down some of those visions from last year or the years before, and I'm starting to see the evidence of them coming to life and becoming real. It tells me that even if I have a specific timeline in mind, number one, my timeline might not be realistic, right? Because I want things to happen tomorrow. So that's number one. But number two, just because something doesn't happen right away or doesn't happen within the timeline that I say I want it to happen, or that I expect it to happen, because again, I have maybe unrealistic expectations of how long things take, does not mean they're not in motion, and doesn't mean they're not going to happen. It doesn't mean they're not brewing and percolating and coming to life. And so I just wanted to share that, because that realization just blew me away and gave me some encouragement and excitement as I look to the things I want to do in the next quarter and the quarters after that. Even if I don't necessarily get there in the little box of time that I originally planned or wanted to, that doesn't mean it's not going to happen, right? It may just be a dream that's slightly deferred. It reminds me of when I first set out to do the Package Your Genius Academy concept. And I've shared this before, but I remember I had an event, and the event was amazing. And the whole idea of the event, it was a planning retreat for your brand. And I mean, it was pretty much sold out. Like, the room was packed. It was amazing. And at the end, I pitched this idea of a group program where you would be with me for 6 months and you'd get all these things. You'd get a copy of the branding box, yada, yada, yada. And not one person signed up. I was devastated in that moment, because I had done so much work, I thought, to create this offer that I thought was just, almost too good to be true. And in retrospect, I think the timing, the pricing, the length of the program, there were so many things about it that, could have been tweaked to make it more palatable to the people who were there in the room. But the fact that no one signed up initially made me think this was a bad idea and I shouldn't do it at all. But fast forward, as you know now, I've now held 3 full cohorts, and I'm in the 4th cohort now of Package Your Genius Academy. And even though that day when I had my event and it was full, and I pitched this idea of the academy and no one took me up on that offer, even though my idea, my timeline for the academy was that day and the 6 months after that day, it didn't happen in earnest for another 14 months. But when it happened, the timing was right for both me and I think my audience and my community. And so I just share that to say that sometimes when you have an idea of when something should happen, and just because it doesn't happen when you press the button for it to happen doesn't mean it will never happen. And just because you haven't necessarily reached the goal that you set for yourself in the timeline that you first decided that you wanted to achieve it does not mean it's not going to happen. Don't stop making those lists. Don't stop, making your vision boards. Don't stop putting things up around you to remind yourself of what it is that you want, because all of that information, I think, really seeps in to your spirit, to your mind, to your subconscious. And even when you don't know you're taking steps towards your vision, sometimes you're taking steps towards your vision. Like, I'm telling you, I am walking around in a daze and I look up and I have all this connection and all of these things that I doodled about in my moleskin 2 years ago. And now it's like, this is my life. So take that, reflect back on some of your past visions that maybe you hadn't even thought about in a while, and maybe they've come to life too, and share those with me. But hold on to those. And when you don't reach the goal and the vision isn't realized in the timeline that you set, be encouraged, because that does not mean it's not going to happen. All right. Thanks.